Griot Kande plucked his kora until the strings sounded like water talking. Listen, he told the courtyard children. To the year the river Seli fell silent. The dust season had arrived early. Fish baskets returned light. Wells gurgled like old men clearing their throats. Even in the palace of Nyaré, where blue banners normally fluttered coolly, heat pressed down like a hand. King Makori toured the granaries with advisor Kemba, counting sacks that felt thinner than truth. Princess Nyala sparred in the shade, masking worry with motion. And Queen Sira stood alone at the palace parapet, eyes on the river's dull back. A heron landed, shook its legs, and stared at her as if waiting for an answer. Sira touched the cowries at her torque and remembered the ancestral oath spoken by queens of Nyaré. If ever the river asks, we answer with open hands. But what if the river asked for something the kingdom could not give? That night, Diviner Awa cast shells on white cloth. The water goes where promise points, she said. Your line holds a debt you have not paid. Sira felt the old scar above her brow itch. She'd earned it as a girl rescuing Nyala from floodwater. Water gives, water takes. The kora's final note trembled. The first crack, Candy told the children, wasn't in the riverbed. It was in the court's trust. At dawn, Kemba unfolded his palm leaf ledger beneath a neem tree. Numbers were a second language to him, and today they coughed like sick goats. Tribute caravans delayed, salt bricks piled up unsold, grain stores dwindled to a hush. Sira watched from the pavilion, her hands folded, listening as King Makori paced. We cut feasts, Makori declared. We ration millet. We implore Genru for trade relief. Jallo will not help without claws, Kemba warned, tapping a column. He will want tariffs, guards at our gates, and a seat in council. Princess Nyala interrupted, flushed from training. We need wells dug deeper, canals cleared. Let me lead teams. Sira nodded, approving with a raised palm. She had cultivated the habit of silence when thinking, and people mistook it for indifference. A messenger brought darker news. 3 villages had abandoned fields to follow a wandering prophet, promising rain in exchange for vows and valuables. The court murmured, a drought breeds poets and thieves in equal measure. Call the elders, call Awa, Makori said, and Kande, sing hope. The griot obliged, but his melody dragged its feet. Sira traced a river sigil in chalk on the rail. It cooled her finger. She remembered an old tale her mother whispered about a pact sealed with a calabash at the river's source, an oath of guardianship, renewed by each queen. Sira had not renewed it. Ceremonies had been delayed, then forgotten under trade disputes and border patrols. The ledger's hunger was not only grain, it was memory. Before dawn, Sira slipped from the palace with Captain Bako and 2 trusted handmaidens. They carried a sealed calabash wrapped in indigo cloth. The path to the river Seli's headwater wound through termite mounds and sleeping acacias. Hyenas laughed far away. Bako walked at her side, saying nothing, matching her silence with his own. At the shrine, a low dome of river mud veined with shells, Diviner Awa waited, already chalked white. She set cowries in a spiral and whispered to the water, Old Mother, remember us. Mist rose from the spring as if it had been waiting inside the earth to exhale. Awa turned to Sira. To renew the oath, you must give voice. Your mother sang your name here. The river recognizes song. Sira looked down. Her voice had been a public tool, measured, careful, powerful, until the day during the flood when she had screamed Nyala's name so hard it split something inside. Since then, words cost more. Still, she nodded. The calabash was unwrapped. Awa pricked Sira's thumb. A drop of blood swirled in the spring like a small red fish. Speak, Awa said gently. Sira opened her mouth and heard another voice in the mist. It promised rain strong enough to hammer smiles into roofs. It promised full nets, fat goats, and quiet ledgers. The price was small, it said, a vow of silence until harvest, and a concession, control of Nyaré's river tolls, granted to emissaries of Seli. Sira felt relief like cool water. She nodded once. The spring brightened. Awa frowned. What did you agree to, my queen? Sira closed her mouth, already bound. Clouds stacked like dark gourds over midday. The first raindrops struck the palace tiles so hard people cheered and cried at once. Children ran out to taste the sky. Women beat calabashes in rhythm. Men raised spears and let them wash. Conde's Cora finally danced. The river Sele lifted its back, scales of light flashing. Sira stood on the steps, rain seaming her face. Makori embraced her. "You did it," he laughed, not caring how. She laid a hand against his chest, nodding. A vow of silence for a season. Reasonable, she told herself. A queen can speak with gestures, with edicts written and drums beaten. The concession of tolls would be temporary, surely. Some ritual title for river spirits collected by priests. She would explain later, once the harvest was safe. Later was a promise people make to themselves when the present feels like shade. Within days, the fields near the banks greened. Fishermen returned with baskets heavy enough to creak. The palace kitchens steamed. The ledger's numbers began to stand upright. But something new appeared. Robed emissaries of Sele, faces veiled in river blue, carrying reed staffs carved with wave marks. They set up counting posts at the ferries, stamped clay tokens, and waved away old guards with polite firmness. "This is unusual," Kemba muttered, rubbing his beard. Makori shrugged. "Priests collecting due offerings. The river fed us. Let it taste coin." Sira looked at the emissary's hands, too smooth for priests, too quick for novices, and felt a pebble of doubt lodge beneath her heart. By the second week, ferrymen grumbled. The clay tokens the emissaries issued were clever, stamped with wave patterns that shimmered when wetted, but the tariffs doubled, then doubled again. Traders from Genru balked. Warlord Jallo's jackal banners paused at the far bank like predators reconsidering a leap. Princess Nyala rode the levees, listening. "The river's generosity shouldn't eat our bread," a farmer told her, holding up calloused hands. "We can't afford to cross to our own kin," Nyala reported back. Makori's jaw tightened. "We speak with these emissaries." Sira wrote her agreement on a slate, chalk strokes crisp. In the audience hall, the emissaries bowed in unison. Their leader's eyes were clever stones. "Queen of Nyaré," he said smoothly. The old oath was neglected. "We secure what is owed." "What oath binds the tolls to your hands?" Kemba demanded. "The one your queen renewed," the leader replied, glancing at Sira. The river heard her promise. Silence struck the hall. Sira felt heat behind her eyes. She signed rapidly. Seasonal stewardship, not seizure. The leader smiled. "Words bind as spoken. Silence binds as well." She accepted terms with a nod and blood. Makori looked at Sira, confusion carving him smaller. She could not say, "I thought it ceremonial. I thought I could fix it later." The emissaries withdrew with guards of their own, men who moved like mercenaries, not monks. Kande tuned his kora with trembling hands. "Sometimes the drum you don't beat still calls a dance," he murmured. The rains continued, but whispers grew teeth. Ferries ran half empty. Some traders took goat paths, paying bribes to avoid official crossings. A caravan was found stripped by river wolves, a new gang with unnerving discipline. Their leader wore a jackal tooth beside a shell charm. Kemba's fingers hovered over the ledger's margins, unsure where to place this loss. Jallo's envoys arrived with courteous threats. "Genru will not starve beside a swollen river," they said. "Lower tolls or expect our friendship to dry." Makori stalled, sending gifts and promises. He slept less. Nyala watched him with the clenched patience of a daughter who wants to fight what cannot be cut. Diviner Awa burned incense at the palace steps. The smoke curled into shapes that made courtiers blink. A calabash cracked. A crown reflected in water upside down. "You bargained with a mirror," she told Sira privately. "The river kept its side. Now it has lawyers." Sira wrote, "How do I unbind?" Awa's shells clacked. "Sacrifices reverse not," she said, "but choose carefully, or you trade one debt for a deeper one." That evening, Conde sang a rough song in the market about a fisher who swapped his net for rain and caught only coins that cut his palms. People tossed him millet and frowns in equal measure. The emissary's counting house glowed across the square, blue like a calm bruise. Sira stood in the shadow of a baobab, clutching her torques until the cowries left crescent moons in her skin. Warlord Jallo chose a day of bright after rain to cross the river with a hunting party. Jackal-tooth standards waved, and his men smiled like men who had rehearsed their smiles. He embraced Makori before the court, presented a leopard pelt, and praised the queen's wise guardianship of the river. Sira felt the trap purr under the carpet. Over cola nuts, Jallo proposed assistance. Genru would supply grain caravans at friend prices, provided their escorts could secure the ferries from bandit interference. Kemba's pen stalled. Bako's jaw tightened. Emissary guards and Genru escorts eyeing one another across the hall meant two masters at one gate. Nyala's hand drifted to her knife. Jallo bowed to Sira. Silence is a powerful language, Majesty. It makes other men fill the room with their own words. His smile did not touch his eyes. Later, Bako reported that some river wolves carried Genru sabers. Jallo fed both sides of a fire, warming his hands. Makori held counsel deep into night. We refuse with courtesy, he said. We raise our own river watch. Sira wrote, I will go to the source again. Awa warned, the spirit will demand balance. Still, Sira prepared. She had broken the oath by accepting its terms without guarding her people. Silence had become a seal against her. She would bring a new seal, one costly, one clear. She touched the scar above her brow and made herself remember how water can bruise and still carry what you love. Sira took only Bako and Awa to the headwater. No torches, only starlight and the soft phosphor of wet clay. At the shrine, the mist waited like a lawyer in a doorway. Awa set down three things: the cracked calabash from her vision, a bowl of millet, and Sira's torque. I request amendment, Awa announced into the spring. The queen misread your clerk's tongue. Water gathered itself into a thin figure, face shifting like ripples around a stone. Rain was given, it said. Toll was agreed. Silence was pledged. What balance do you bring? Sira signed on the slate, then pushed it into the shallow water. The marks wavered unreadably. She knelt, pressing her forehead to the mud. The smell was the earth's first word. She lifted the torque from her neck and set it beside the calabash. Her status, her story, a queen's crown without metal. Accepted, the water said, for one condition. You must speak, break your pledge, publicly, and endure what follows. The river values courage over convenience. Awa hissed. There will be backlash. Sira breathed out, feeling the shape of decision settle inside her. So be it, she whispered, her first speech in weeks, each syllable a blade and a balm. The spring brightened as if it smiled. When they stood to leave, Bako touched her shoulder. I will stand in the splash with you, he said. The emissaries were not the river, they were men. And men could be named. Market day, drums, smells of frying bean cakes and damp leather. The counting house doors were open, blue veils inside like slow waves. Conde took the square's center and played a single hard chord to hush the crowd. Sira stepped onto the dais. Makori stood at her side. Nyala hovered like a drawn bow. Sira unpinned her scarf. The scar by her brow caught the sun. She raised her hands and finally spoke, voice hoarse but steady. I pledged silence for rain, she said. Gasps rippled. I yielded our ferries to the river's agents. I believed I could steer the cost. I was wrong. The emissary leader smiled without humor. The queen admits her oath. The tolls remain. Sira pointed. You are not the river. You hide jackal teeth behind shells. She named names. 3 river wolves, who were Genru blades, 2 emissaries who met them by moonlight. Bako's men dragged one forward. He spilled tokens across the dust like fish from a ripped net. Makori lifted his lion-tooth pendant. We revoke your custody. The river accepts our amended offering. We restore our guard. How do you know? The leader scoffed. Kande struck a Kora run. The sky answered with a narrow, sudden rain that soaked only the emissaries and their ledgers. Laughter stuttered into cheers. Awa lifted both hands, shells flashing. Balance heard. The emissaries tried to rally, Then Jallo's agents, exposed, slipped away first. Without shadow allies, blue veils looked thin. The crowd surged. Sira held up both palms. No blood, she said, and it felt like a gate opening in her throat. Humiliation is a whetstone. By nightfall, Genru riders blackened the horizon. Jallo discarded his polite smile and showed his teeth. Fires kindled along the far bank like a necklace of angry stars. You broke the balance, his envoy shouted across water. We will collect interest. Makori readied defenses. Nyala took command of the river watch, stringing ropes of thorn and deploying small boats as fast raiders. Kemba evacuated granaries and sealed ledgers like he was corking storms in bottles. Awa paced the walls, cloth fluttering. Sira's voice was back, but a new cost had arrived. She climbed the battlements and spoke to archers, to potters carrying sling stones, to mothers stockpiling water. Hold, she told them. The river remembers justice. The first raid hit at moonrise, silent boats cutting the current like knives. Bako's men were ready. Nets dropped, oars tangled. Nyala's arrow thudded into the prow of the lead craft, pinning a jackal pennant to wood. Shouts, splashes, a brief, ugly fight that smelled of wet rope and iron. On the quay, Sira faced an emissary lieutenant trying to slip away with a chest of tokens. Your contracts are void, she said. Return what you harvested. He sneered, then lunged. Sira pivoted. Old training, not forgotten. The lieutenant fell, stunned, and the chest burst. Clay coins rolled like small moons toward the river, which swallowed them without a ripple. Conde, watching, whispered, The water takes what was taken. At dawn, drums called the city to the river steps. Awa drew a chalk circle and placed the cracked calabash at its center. The queen will undergo trial by Sealy, she announced. If she is false, the water will show it. If she is true, the water will lend her its mouth. Skeptical murmurs. Some remembered the tolls more than the rain. Sira removed her torque. She had not worn it since the shrine, and faced the current. Awa cut her palm lightly and held it over the river. A single drop fell, widening into a ring. Speak, Awa said. Sira told the whole of it. The ledger's hunger, the shrine's offer, her nod, her fear of explaining a complicated mercy that might fail. I chose quiet because it was quick, she finished. It made room for other men's words to fill our lives. That was my betrayal. Silence stretched. Then the river surged. Not a flood, just a long, low breath that lapped her ankles. The crowd exhaled as one. A child laughed. Conde's Cora sang a bright, simple phrase, like sunlight finding a cup. Awa raised her shells. Saley accepts amendment, but a price remains. The queen's voice is restored, and with it, responsibility. She must bind our ferries to transparent law, posted, public, and sworn on water. No secret oaths, ever again. Sira bowed. So sworn. Behind them, Jallo's riders formed again. Trials please spirits. They rarely impress warlords. The law tablets went up that afternoon, clay plaques at every ferry, fixed tolls, public accounts, citizen oversight, seasonal relief for drought. Kemba, suddenly invigorated, organized a council of ferrymen, fishers, and market mothers. He set out bowls where people could place questions written or carved. Transparency felt like opening all the shutters at once. Jallo moved to cut the light. He sent saboteurs to smash tablets and set fire to storehouses. Nyala's patrols caught the first team. The saboteurs wore river blue over Genru sand, loyalty layered like bad plaster. Under questioning and a stern stare from Bako, 2 confessed. Sira convened an open court on the quay. We try them here, she said, with eyes on us. Witnesses spoke. Cande recorded. The saboteurs, seeing no dark corner to hide in, begged to be judged by the old custom of river labor. Rebuild what you break. The crowd agreed. They lifted stones and repaired tablet plinths with their own hands while everyone watched. That night, a barge of salt, Jallo's property, drifted close, unguarded. Temptation gleamed like moonlight on the bricks. Sira ordered it seized, but not stolen. Hold it in surety, she said. Return it when he returns our captives and the goods his wolves stripped. Makori smiled at her across the torchlight. Not forgiveness, recognition. They stood together, rulers with mud on their boots, not above the river, but in it. In Jallo gathered his main force at last, intending to lay siege. Drums thudded from the dunes. But siege needs hunger as its herald, and Nyaré had quietly filled its bowls. Community kitchens, neighbor-to-neighbor grain swaps, river gardens sprouting between stones. Kemba's ledgers balanced like men who had stopped lying to themselves. Sira sent messengers upriver and down with the new laws stamped in clay. Neighboring towns, curious and tired of blue veils, sent small boats laden with yams and praise. Jallo's scouts returned with an annoying truth. Attacking would make him the thief of shared prosperity. He tried spectacle instead, riding to the ferry to demand a duel, a theatrical throw of the dice. "Send me your champion," he called. "If I win, the tolls come to Genru. If I lose, I leave." Nyala stepped forward, bow in hand. Sira shook her head and put a hand on her daughter's wrist. "Words won this tangle," she said softly. She walked to the waterline. "You fear open law," she told Jallo, voice carrying. "You cannot tax what people can see." Jallo laughed. "I fear only boredom." "Then be entertained," Sira replied and signaled. Boats from 3 towns slid into view, their prows painted with the same new seal, a calabash uncracked, a crown reflected upright. Trade lanes reopened like smiles. Jallo looked at his men, hungry for loot, not lawsuits, and saw restlessness. He withdrew with curses dressed as compliments. Peace returns like a stranger, polite, awkward, carrying a memory of noise. The emissaries vanished or blended back into trade cloaks. A few repented openly, accepted river labor, and earned thin forgiveness. Jallo's name became a lesson fathers used when children lied about chores. Sira visited the villages that had followed the rain prophet. Many returned, ashamed. Some stayed, building shrines of their own in the hills. Sira did not punish piety. She posted the law tablets there, too. "Wherever water runs, law follows," she said, voice steady now, tempered by the break. In council, Kemba presented final tallies. Losses, 2 ferry pylons, 7 boats, injured guards, scorched stores. Gains, repaired levees, wider gardens, stronger councils, clearer books. "And a queen with a voice we can measure," he added, surprising himself with warmth. Sira laughed, a small human sound the court had missed. She found her torque in Awa's shrine, cowries dull with dried mud. "Leave it unpolished," she told Awa. "Let it remember." Kande prepared the closing song, weaving a refrain the children could carry. "No secret oaths by the river." Nyala teased him for its plainness. "Plain words hold," he said. "Fancy ones leak." At sunset, Sira and Makori walked the quay. He took her hand. "We nearly lost them," he said. "We lost their trust," she answered. "Then we learned to earn it." The river moved, indifferent and generous. On the anniversary of the first drought rain, the court gathered at the river steps. Not to beg, not to bargain in shadows, but to declare. Awa drew a new circle, this one unbroken. Sira stepped within it with Makori, Nyala, Kemba, Bako, and Kande at her side. Citizens packed the banks. Boats bobbed like heads nodding amen. Sira raised both hands. "I, Sira of Nyaré, swear. There will be no oath that is not public, no pact that is not written and sung. The river feeds us. We feed it with justice. Toll and tax will be posted, weighed, and witnessed. If I betray this, let the water take my torque and carry my name downstream like a leaf." She placed the torque on the water. It floated, then turned once and drifted back to her palms. The crowd breathed out as if they had been holding air all year. Kande sang the final verse. Children stamped the rhythm. Nyala smiled with pride unspooled. Bako's scar looked softer in the light. Kemba closed his ledger with a satisfied thump that sounded somehow like applause. Sira looked along the river and imagined future queens standing where she stood, repeating words that did not sparkle but would endure. She had broken an oath and then mended it with her own voice. Betrayal had taught her the cost of quiet. Leadership would teach her the value of being heard. The river Seli went on speaking in its language of moving light.